Hello everyone. I hope you're all studying third semester of BSc, that is second year, and this is session 7. I am Dr. Pratima Matthias, Assistant Professor of Chemistry, who will be taking you through session 7 of chapter 2, Ultracentrifugation, coming under Unit 1 of Analytical Chemistry. So what are we going to study and what are the prerequisites is very important. So prerequisites, you should have seen a centrifuge tube. So have you all seen a centrifuge tube? You have to know what is isopycnic, or it is also called isopycnic, and what is a preparative analysis. Okay, these three things you should know. Let us see. Just recall with me and check if you know them. So this is non-automatic, that is manual centrifuge tube, which is present in most of the colleges. Okay, so you're going to rotate it here and there will be a centrifugal motion and there will be force, and hence this, when you place the tube here you will have separation. Okay, this is a centrifuge machine. So you will have either a glass or a plastic tube which will fit into this. Okay, fit into these so that it will not spill, and that is called as a centrifuge tube. Next, what is isopycnic? So it denotes ultra-centrifugal separation technique which makes use of differences in density between the components of a mixture. So that is isopycnic. Okay. So we shall look at that in detail later on, but you should know these are the terms which you will be coming across. What is a preparative analysis? Okay. So this is not just identification of what compound you have, but you're going to separate it. Okay. You're going to separate that. So when you're going to separate it, we call it as preparative analysis. Okay, it's not just identification, that is qualitative analysis, it is quantitative. You're going to separate it. Having seen these prerequisites, let us move on to the next part, learning objectives. After this session, you will be able to know how to select centrifuge tube for centrifugation, and you will be able to know different types of preparative centrifugation. Let me tell you here, I am going to combine both session 7 and session 8 in this particular video. Okay, you are going to refer this video for both session 7 and session 8. So coming back, your learning objectives for this session, that is session 7, is to know how to select centrifuge tube for centrifugation and to know the different types of preparative centrifugation. Finally, at the end, you will be able to appreciate the varieties of centrifugation techniques. First, centrifuges and criteria for selection of centrifuge tubes. This is very important whenever you carry out any centrifugation process. So I told you, you're supposed to select those centrifuge tubes which will fit into your centrifuge machine. You may have manual or you may have automatic centrifuge machines. First thing is you're going to put your sample into those centrifuge tubes, and hence your centrifuge tubes should be compatible. Okay, it should be compatible with the machine. It has to fit into it properly. Okay, and it should be sterile. It should be sterile because you do not intend any reaction of your analyte with the centrifuge tube. Therefore, your centrifuge tube should be compatible and sterile. Next, it should be compatible with volume capacities. Say you have a sample which is around 10 ml, and if you have a centrifuge tube of 1 ml, how will that possibly work out for you. You will have to do it 10 times, right? And hence, whenever you choose, you have to see that you have compatible volumes and its capacity should be with what you desire to separate. So you are not supposed to overfill it or underfill it. So both overfilling and underfilling will result in bursting and collapsing during spinning. Okay, when you go on spinning, if you have filled one tube half and the other opposite tube full, it will burst your centrifuge tubes and sometimes it will spill out. So whatever you do will become a waste and hence tube leakage can result in aerosol formation, you know that, and contamination of the samples leading to health hazards. So now because of COVID, you know what are aerosols, right? They are liquid particles which are present while you cough along with the virus in the air and hence you are asked to wear masks. Similarly, imagine if you have your centrifuge tube, you want to separate a particular compound. You want to precipitate it using centrifugal force. And if it spills and there are aerosols inside the instrument, what will happen is when you carry out the next analysis of another sample, the particular sample which you have already spilled within the instrument will interfere and they will cause contamination. So you are not supposed to do all such things. Hence, you have to select centrifuge tubes with compatible volume capacities. They should be of equal weights. This is very important because just remember or recall your childhood game wherein you catch hands, two of you will catch hands and you'll go round and round. Okay, so if the opponent is lighter than you, what will happen? Or if he is heavier than you, what will happen? So here you have to bear in mind that while you are going to use this centrifuge tubes, those centrifuge tubes should be of equal weights and hence the capacity should also be equally full. Okay, and sample recovery from the centrifuge tube should be easy. This is also very important. You have put your sample and say for example while you are going to remove it, you will have to apply all your force and do all Herculean tasks in order to get back your sample, then that will not work and hence it has to be easy for you to recover the sample. So let us look at these points once again. While you select your centrifuge tubes, they have to be compatible and sterile. They should have compatible volume capacities. They should be of equal weights and sample recovery from the centrifuge tube should be easier. Few best examples of centrifuge tubes are the tubes made from polypropylene, polyalomer, polycarbonate and polyethylene terephthalate PETs. Okay, all these are usually sterile, compatible, they come in equal weights and sample recovery is slightly easier. Hence you can use these or you can even use glass centrifuge tubes, but you have to handle them very carefully and see that there are no corrosive materials which will react with the glass. Next, let us move on to what is preparative centrifugation. Preparative centrifugation deals with isolation of biological materials for subsequent biochemical investigations. So preparative centrifugation finds its applications in biological fields. This can be divided into two main types depending upon the medium of suspension in which the separation is carried out. Where are you going to carry out separation? Based on that, you have two types. One is differential preparative centrifugation and the other one is density gradient preparative centrifugation. What is density gradient centrifugation? So for your syllabus, you do not have differential centrifugation. You have only density gradient preparative centrifugation. We shall look into that now. What is density gradient? Here, separation is carried out in a suspended medium having density gradients. Very simple. So there should be a change in density. It is gradient, means the density of one compound is lesser than the other one is lesser than the other. So they do not match each other. So there will be a gradient. So if such gradients are present and you are carrying out separation using centrifugation, they are called as density gradient centrifugation. In a density gradient centrifugation, a density gradient medium is used for separation of particles. The separation under the centrifugal field is dependent upon the buoyant densities of the particles. I told you it is dependent upon the densities. The gradients, apart from the exerting their separating effect, eliminate mixing of separated components due to convection of mechanical vibrations. Okay, let me just repeat this for you. The gradients, apart from exerting their separating effects, eliminate mixing of separated components. How? Due to convection and mechanical vibrations. So they are going to get easily and nicely separated. This method gives a much better separation than differential centrifugation. Okay, this is a step ahead. Density gradient separation is a step ahead of differential centrifugation. So the next part for your syllabus is isopycnic centrifugation. Isopycnic centrifugation. If a density gradient is prepared in tube and a solution of different particles is centrifuged in these medium, different particles differing in their buoyant densities will travel different lengths and become stationary at a region where the density of the layer below them is greater than their own buoyant density. Okay, so let me just repeat it once again for you. It's very simple. If a density gradient is prepared in a tube you are going to prepare density gradient, and a solution of different particles is centrifuged. Okay, solution of different particles is centrifuged in these medium. Which medium? Medium having different density gradients. What will happen? Different particles differing in their buoyant densities, so they will have different densities, will travel different lengths. When you apply centrifugation force, they are going to travel to different lengths. They are going to go somewhere and become stationary where at a region where the density of the layer below them is greater than their own buoyant density. Okay, so this is how isopycnic centrifugation is carried out. So it is also called as sedimentation equilibrium centrifugation. So you can see it here. This is one image. For better understanding, you have a solution. Okay, a sample containing particles of different densities are over here. When you apply centrifugal force, these are going to travel. So they are going to travel. And when they travel, they are going to reach a particular place where solution below them is of higher density than which is above them. Okay, centrifugal force acting on the particles, higher density acts as a cushion here. Okay, so this is the higher density cushion, and this is the centrifugal force on the particles, and the particles are going to come here. So this is how you're going to represent isopycnic centrifugation. So, summary of the session 7. You have to select good centrifuge tubes for centrifugation, and they have to be compatible sterile, compatible volume capacity should be there, equal weight should be there, and sample recovery should be easy. And then you have to you have preparative centrifugation. Under preparative centrifugation you have two types, differential and density gradient. Okay, density gradient, and then we have seen isopycnic centrifugation. There are three types which we have seen. So which one is better according to you? What type of centrifugation is better? I think if you have differences in densities, isopycnic centrifugation will give you the best result. Okay, so now let us move on to MCQs. It is alright to overflow the centrifuge tubes. Obviously false. right? Centrifugation based on difference in density gradients is called, what is it? Gradient centrifugation, density separation, density gradient centrifugation, or none of the above? What do you think? What's the answer? Yes, it is density gradient centrifugation. Third one, the following is not a type of centrifugation technique. Come on, let us see. Isopycnic separation, we have studied about this. Density gradient separation, centrifugation, studied. Preparative centrifugation, studied. Filtration, obviously filtration is not a centrifugation technique. Okay, so your answer should be D, filtration. This technique involves buoyant densities for separation. Which is that? Differential centrifugation, isopycnic centrifugation, rate zonal centrifugation, both A and B. What do you think? Yes, the answer is isopycnic centrifugation. Okay, so this is references for session 7. Now we shall move on to session 8. Session 8. Under session 8, the prerequisites to go through the session 8 is what is sedimentation and what is centrifugation. You have to know this clear-cut difference. What is sedimentation? You're going to allow the particles to settle under force of gravity, gravitational force. What is centrifugation? You're going to apply centrifugal force and force those particles to settle down. That is called as centrifugation. We know that, right? And learning objectives of this particular session 8 is to know the meaning of analytical sedimentation, to know sedimentation coefficient, and to understand sedimentation velocity. We are going to understand what is sedimentation velocity. Fine. And once again, let me tell you, I am Pratima Matthias, Dr. Pratima Matthias, Assistant Professor of Chemistry, who is going to take you through even this session 8. So at the end of the session, you will have the knowledge of ultracentrifugation. What do you mean by ultracentrifugation? So for this session, you are supposed to know what is analytical sedimentation. Analytical sedimentation is also called as analytical ultracentrifugation. So what does it provide? It provides useful information on what size and shape of macromolecules. Okay, what does analytical sedimentation do? It will provide useful information on size and shape of macromolecules which are present in solution, with very few restrictions on the sample or the nature of solvent. So you do not have restrictions, but it will give you nice information about size and shape of the macromolecules. The range of molecular weights suitable for analytical ultrasedimentation exceeds that of any other solution technique for a few hundred daltons to several 100 million daltons. So you can separate huge quantity of your sample here. Okay, and they are applicable to biological samples like peptides, dyes, oligosaccharides, viruses, organelles. Okay, you can separate them. Or your dyes can be organic, inorganic. So that's where chemistry sets in. All these are biochemistry. Okay. What is sedimentation coefficient? Yes, sedimentation coefficient, yes, is given by S is equal to V divided by omega square R, which is equal to V divided by A simply, where A is equal to omega square R. Does it ring a bell? What is omega square R? Yes, omega square R is centrifugal force. We have seen in previous sessions. Okay, we have seen it in session number 6 that F is equal to omega square R. F is centrifugal force. Therefore, sedimentation coefficient is equal to V divided by almost F. So the definition is sedimentation coefficient is ratio of a particle's sedimentation velocity, this V, to the applied acceleration causing the sedimentation or the amount of time it would take the particle to reach its terminal velocity under the given acceleration if there were no drag. Okay, there should be no drag, and how much of time it will take to reach the terminal velocity is called as sedimentation coefficient. Let us just go through this definition once again. Sedimentation coefficient is ratio of a particle's sedimentation velocity to the applied acceleration causing the sedimentation, or the amount of time it would take the particle to reach its terminal velocity under the given acceleration if there were no drag. Okay. Diffusion causes the sedimentation boundary to spread with time. So usually there is sometimes a diffusion which will be occurring. There will be separation, but if you leave it for a longer time, it will get diffused. Hence, by monitoring the motion and shape of the boundary, it is possible to determine the sedimentation coefficient. Next term, sedimentation velocity. Sedimentation velocity is an analytical ultracentrifugation method which measures the rate at which molecules move in response to centrifugal force generated in a centrifuge. The rate at which molecules are going to move under centrifugal force is called as sedimentation velocity. This sedimentation rate provides information about both the molecular mass and the shape of the molecules. So you'll get both the information here. In some cases, this technique can also measure diffusion coefficients and molecular mass. So it can be applied to even find out what is the diffusion coefficient, how much a particular molecule can diffuse, or you can even use it to determine a molecular mass of proteins and all such biological samples. So in conclusion of this summary, in conclusion of this session or this session summary, we have seen what is analytical sedimentation, we have seen what is sedimentation coefficient, okay, and we have seen what is sedimentation velocity. So analytical sedimentation, it is also called analytical ultracentrifugation, right? And it gives useful information about size and shape of macromolecule with very few restrictions in it. Sedimentation coefficient is the ratio of particle sedimentation velocity to applied acceleration causing the sedimentation, and sedimentation velocity is in an analytical centrifugation method. It measures the rate at which molecules move in response to centrifugal force generated in a centrifuge. Now let us move on to multiple choice questions. First one, both peptides and viruses can be isolated from this technique. Come on, tell me which one. Options are analytical ultracentrifugation, analytical sedimentation, density gradient separation, or both A and B. Yes, tell me, what do you think? You need peptides and viruses both. You can use either sedimentation if you have lots of time. If you do not have time, you can use ultracentrifugation. Okay, so you can use both. It does not mean you cannot use sedimentation, but you can use both. So the answer should be both A and B. Next, sedimentation velocity is a dash technique. What technique? AUC, ACU, chromatographic or filtration? It is an AUC technique. Sedimentation coefficient is inversely proportional to, it is inversely proportional to R. This method gives information about both shape and molecular mass of sample. Yes, which one? Sedimentation velocity, sedimentation viscosity, sedimentation or centrifugation? It is sedimentation velocity. Okay, these are the references which you can use for further study. And we have in this particular video covered for you both session 8 and session 7. Okay, we have covered both session 7 and session 8. I hope you have no doubts, and if you have any doubts, you can clarify it by using the references which I have provided at the end of each session. Thank you very much.